You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. After LSU lost at Alabama and yet another woeful defensive performance where you allowed more than 500 yards and 42 points, and the LSU defense continues to plunge itself deeper into the abyss of the NCAA defensive football rankings. Tigers, 97th in the country right now in total defense. Hard to believe that an LSU defense could be that bad, and still right now allowing on average but 28 points a game, still off the pace of the 2020 LSU defense, which allowed a full touchdown more than that per game. I guess when you shut out Army, it helps. But 3 games to go for LSU, so we'll see. With all the wailing and gnashing of teeth here in Baton Rouge about the defense, the same's going on in SoCal. The Trojans are 119th in the country in total defense right now. 1 spot behind Vanderbilt, and 1 spot ahead of South Carolina. The 2 worst defenses in the SEC, and USC is sandwiched right in the middle of them at 119th. As a result of that, Lincoln Riley didn't waste any time. Our friend Ross Dellinger over at Yahoo tweeted on Sunday, USC has dismissed defensive coordinator Alex Grinch. Probably a year too late, but it's what it is. Southern Cal's defense is atrocious. And you might say, why make that decision now? Really, there's 2 reasons, as I've learned over the years covering college football and when coaching changes are made and when those decisions are made and when they might be. It's really 2 reasons primarily. Number 1 is you think that in making a change, it gives the guys on the team currently a better opportunity to win now. Like, is it fair to the current USC players to continue to wallow in this awful defensive performance under Alex Grinch? Or if you make a change, could that improve your defensive standing? Clearly, they feel like Alex Grinch not being there, a new voice, will improve the Southern Cal defense. We'll see. The other reason why you make a coaching change midseason is it gives you cover to be able to go pursuing new candidates. Now, that's not to say Lincoln Riley is going to go calling potential defensive coordinator candidates, but whoever that representative from Southern Cal might be can start to call agents for defensive coordinator candidates to gauge interest. You can start to formally do that without having to worry about a guy on your staff hearing that you're shopping his job while he's still employed. So the obvious question turns from Southern Cal to South Louisiana, where LSU's defense is right around the triple-digit mark. And while a lot of you had asked me over the last couple of weeks, has Matt House saved his job? And I pretty consistently told you no, because I don't care that you were good against Auburn and Army. When you play anybody with a pulse, you stink. And clearly that was evident again on Saturday night. Brian Kelly, in a very indirect way, was asked Monday about the evaluation of his defensive staff. Here's what he said.
I think coming off a shutout against Army, coming off a really good performance against Auburn, and then the back end of the Missouri game, I think there's been really good progress from a defensive standpoint. That was a team that played very well. And we set their offense up on the 25-yard line, and then we didn't convert a 4th down, which gave them a half field to deal with on a 4th down that we didn't make as well. So overall, as I mentioned, could we have made a couple of calls to get the quarterback spied? Absolutely. But we're making the kind of progress that I need to see from a defensive standpoint.
We can read a lot into that. I think that comment right there is pretty tone deaf. I can also understand that if you're Brian Kelly, you don't want to, you may not want to disparage your coaches publicly or discourage your players through the media. So I think there's maybe more subtle ways to say it than to say you're seeing the type of progress defensively you need to see. Now, yes, when you allowed 700 yards against Ole Miss and you allowed 500 yards against Alabama, That is progress. By definition, that is progress. But in no reality is allowing 500 yards and 42 points to Alabama ever going to be acceptable. So, no, I don't see Matt House retaining his job. He'll be let go after the season. And if he's not, then Brian Kelly is thumbing his nose at the entirety of college football if he is stubborn. We've seen this once before, and that was with Jerry DiNardo when he hired Lou Tepper. It was atrocious in 1998. Jerry D was firm, dug in, retained Lou Tepper, and DiNardo didn't make it through the 99 season. The other two times we've seen defensive performances like this were 2008. Bo Pelini left for Nebraska. Les Miles elevated Bradley Dale Pivito and Doug Mallory. The co-defensive coordinator experiment was a disaster. They were gone. They brought in John Chavis, which really saved Les Miles at that point. It didn't end great with Chavis in his career, I understand, but at the time, for what college football was, he was a perfect complement to what LSU did offensively. And then, of course, in 2020, when you brought Bo Pelini back, it was atrocious. You ran him out of here after one season. So at a place like LSU, when you're making $2 million a year and your defensive rankings are in the triple digits, you don't survive that. So I'm not screaming, pounding the table, fire the coach or any of that stuff. I understand there's a humanity of all of this. Matt House is a family, and I'm not shouting about that, but I think Matt House also recognizes when you go into coaching, this is the nature of the business. You perform or you're not retained. And this defense is not performing up to anybody's satisfaction. So, and it's terribly disappointing because if your defense was even remotely competent, you would be in the national championship conversation. It's why when this season started, we had these conversations. We went out to fall camp, and it was so obvious that the offense was just bludgeoning the defense, in particular the secondary, every day. And before the season started, I sat right here, and I read for you all of the passing defense numbers of the college football playoff champions. And the point of that was to say, you don't have to be elite defensively. There were only two in the top 15. Two CFP champions that were in the top 15 in the country in passing defense. Alabama in 2020 was 70th. LSU in 2019 was 56th, I believe. 56th, 54th, somewhere in the 50s. And it was only to illustrate when you're great at offense, you don't have to be elite defense. You just got to be good enough. You can't be the worst ever. And unfortunately, this LSU team is the worst ever. And you're going to waste a great, historic offense because your defense has no pulse. And I can't see Matt House surviving that, no matter what Brian Kelly might say today on the 6th day of November. You've got 3 more weeks. I don't suspect the defense is going to get materially better. I think LSU will win their next 3 games, largely because the offense is going to go keep scoring 40 a game. But when LSU takes the field in Las Vegas next year against Southern Cal, my suspicion is both teams will have new defensive coordinators. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.